Hello, everybody. Good morning. Thank you for joining me this morning and Jen. My name is Caitlin. I'm the operations manager from the Alliance for Nonprofit Impact, and I also run 401Gives. Yay! I'm also joined with Jen Remmes, who is the director in donor engagement here at United Way, but also the kind of birth mother of 401Gives. And we're going to be talking a little bit today about peer-to-peer fundraising. Um, Before we get started, I just want to thank our 2025 sponsors. We have a lot of new faces this year, the likes of Coastal One, KLR, Rhode Island Energy, and all of our in-kind sponsors returning. So without them, the prizes that you all receive are not possible. So thank you again so much. We have a couple of items on the agenda. We are going to talk about some peer-to-peer fundraising basics, the strategies and best practices, how to empower and engage your fundraisers. We're also going to be talking about the fundraising tool itself in your profile as a little demo, and then also the resources available to your organization. So really quick, overall, what is peer-to-peer fundraising? Peer-to-peer fundraising allows your most passionate supporters to create and host their own fundraising page right within your 401Gives profile, and their totals roll up into yours. If anyone has ever seen someone have a birthday on Facebook, or they see a fundraiser in an Instagram profile, that's peer-to-peer fundraising. So you as an individual are going to your peer community and saying that you care about a cause, you care about an organization, and you would like your peers to donate on behalf of the love that you have for that program, service, or organization. We see that peer-to-peer fundraising has a large impact on the way that we operate 401 Gives, and it's really kind of the bread and butter of 401 Gives. So last year, there was 653 peer-to-peer fundraisers that raised dollars for their orgs. There was over 1,000 in total, but these are all the people that got dollars in the door. And in total, that came out to about $462,000. So it was a good chunk of the overall money raised. The average raised without a peer-to-peer fundraiser was just above $3,000. Oops. And the average raised with a peer-to-peer fundraiser came out to $13,000, almost 14. So there's a difference of almost 10K there when you have other people out doubling your mission and doubling your reach. So why is peer-to-peer fundraising so effective? How do we get to that average number? It's multiplying your reach to potential donors. You have more people out on social platforms. You have more people out in their communities and their peer circles looking and doing that ask. It results in more authentic outreach and messaging. I always use the example of when you were younger and you wanted your friend to sleep over. You wouldn't have your friend go ask your mom to sleep over. You would go ask your mom to sleep over because you have the relationship with her. And it kind of works the same way here with peer-to-peer fundraising. I love that Jen is smiling and shaking her head. It uses the power of social influence and increases your social media presence. We are in a digital age, and the more messaging and the more work that you can get out in the digital age, the better off you're going to be. And it also establishes another venue for engagement with your organization. The more hands you have in the pot, putting out your message and putting out your reach, the more return you're going to get, especially for nonprofits that have a smaller staff capacity. If you can engage your volunteers and your donors and your board members in this kind of way, you're going to be a little bit more well off. So to do peer-to-peer fundraising, you definitely have to strategize and plan. There's around 4 general steps to this, and this is really watering it down. Peer-to-peer fundraising is a little bit more complex than this. But select individuals who will be your loudest voices, and who are comfortable doing this kind of work. Communicate that storytelling is vital, and it makes the ask easier. When you have information and data and stories to back up that ask, some people who may be more a little uncomfortable in those spaces will feel more comfortable. And also, the donor that you're asking to give that money now knows why that ask is being made. You also want to steward your fundraisers along, and we'll talk about that timeline a little bit later, and also make it fun. There's a lot of room to be fun with 401 Gives. There's a lot of room to do new things. This is a fun giving day, so make this experience fun for your fundraisers. And so, Jen, we come up on the first question for you. If you could give one piece of advice to someone just getting started with peer-to-peer fundraising with 401 Gives, what would it be?
My biggest piece of advice from my experience being in Katie's seat, doing 401 Gives, and then last year having been worked at an independent nonprofit. So I'll just back up real quick for those that didn't know. I was at United Way for about 14 years. and then left to find a new journey, became the director, a brand new role, director of development at an organization called Insight. So I was there about 14 years until United Way's calling brought me back. So here I am back as the director of donor engagement. So to answer Katie's question, I don't want you to think that peer-to-peer fundraising is just putting out a broad ask and everyone's going to come running. It really is the relationships that you have. You need to personally ask the people to be peer-to-peer fundraisers. The biggest thing is quality over quantity. I would rather have 4 really dedicated peer-to-peer fundraisers than 15 people that are just going to sign up a page and maybe make a gift themselves or not get any gifts at all. So that is definitely the quick and dirty of the first question, is definitely relationships. It's not just like everything basically in life, but everything which I've always taught in 401 Gives is that you do need to put a little bit of work in it, but when you put work in it, you get it back. So,
Yeah. I think the dedication is also part of that storytelling piece. If you, as someone who possibly hasn't even received services from this organization, but you just love them so much, are
mm,
really dedicated and driven and putting out this ask, I think the other donors will see that. Or you're someone who's received a lot of services from an organization or volunteered a lot or are a board member. And when you can kind of spell out that dedication, how much it means to you, I think that that goes really, really far versus having someone just kind of put out the link and then not say anything.
right.
Um, we're also in a digital age where I think that a lot of scams are happening. And so if you can have kind of a robust peer-to-peer fundraiser, it's going to feel more comfortable for the people that are receiving those links online.
Right. And a lot of different organizations have clients or families or youth that may not be able to give monetary donations to your organization, but this is an absolutely fantastic way that they can share their story and put their information out to their networks to ask people to give. I mean, as we've said for the last 6 years, even $5 is super
Yeah.
important
Yeah,
to,
we talk a lot about time, talent, and treasure, and that's certainly
yeah,
the talent and time right there. It's definitely a way to volunteer in a digital age. And like you said, if somebody can't give monetarily, they can certainly give their time for those
yeah,
2 days.
yeah.
Um, So we can't have peer-to-peer fundraising without peer-to-peer fundraisers. And so there's ways that you can identify potential fundraisers, and you're kind of looking within circles. So in your middle piece is your board members, family, friends, and staff. These are people who are interacting with your organization every day, who know the organization well, who have been involved in the organization for a long time. Outside of that, you kind of have your beneficiaries, which are the people who receive services. These are your community members, and then also your volunteers, people that are highly engaged with you, whether they've done one project or many. Um, and then on that outer ring, we have donors, local influencers, businesses, and community members. These are folks that may have interacted with your organization lightly, but if you've done that stewardship and you have those touches with them, they can be really beneficial in reaching kind of your everyday audience, the people that they touch the most. So if you have a business partner, they can touch their customers. If you have a local influencer, they can talk to their following. But you can kind of look within these circles to see where your best peer-to-peer fundraisers will lie. And so, Jen, how did you slash will you go about choosing your peer-to-peer fundraisers, both when you were at Insight, but also now doing the work in United Way?
So, currently at United Way, so I'm responsible for United Way as one of 600 nonprofits that raises money. We are not eligible for matching money or prizes, just to be fair, just to let everyone know. But currently what we are doing, we have a good size community advisory board. We have a board and we have other committees as well. We also have an emerging leaders group and our Women United group. So I have been reaching out to all of them. And I'm actually hosting somewhat similar webinar next week for them to personalize it, let them know how to do it, and kind of give them the same information. In addition, I haven't thought of something for the board or the Women United, but I know for the emerging leaders, which are people that are kind of early career to mid-career, and networks are super important to them. The prize for the person that raises the most number of donors, not dollars, because we feel that, that's more equitable to get number of donors, gets to have lunch with our CEO and president, Courtney Nicolato. So that's pretty exciting for them. They're very happy about that. So that's one thing that we're doing. So we're doing outreach to all of those people. Currently, like I said, quality over quantity. We have about 10 people signed up for that session. I hope to get a few more because I just know from experience, if I have 10, I might get 6, which still is fantastic. And again, the thing is, we obviously everyone wants to raise more money, but this is more about a donor acquisition tool. We want to get new donors to steward them throughout the year. Now we can send them the newsletter, and if a friend of the board is like, well, Greg is really involved in the board, I want to get to know more about what United Way does. And they can get the newsletter, they can be invited to events. And so it's really a donor acquisition tool other than just, getting that $5, $25, $100 is great. But we want to steward people and keep them moving and let them know the amazing work that United Way is doing. So while I was at Insight, it was different. And it was funny because for the first 4 years, as I was doing these webinars like Katie is doing, I always said I was the coach that never played the game. And so then I finally got to play the game. And yeah, it was interesting to try to figure out how to get peer-to-peer fundraisers. So anyone that is familiar with Insight, they help the visually impaired in Rhode Island, and they do a lot of great services and help a lot of people. So, but majority of the visually impaired, they're not necessarily, there's only a small percentage that are fully blind, or a lot of older adults that are losing their vision. And as we know, a majority of older adults are not very technologically savvy. So we had about 400 donors. We did have access to the family members as well, but it was kind of a policy that we didn't really reach out to the family members. So I was kind of like, okay, how do I find people that are invested in Insight? So what I actually did, and it did take a little bit of time, was kind of scour the last year of the Facebook page. And I looked at all the people that were responding to photos and posts and kind of made a list of the like top 20 people that really, were liked things and said, oh, this is great. This looks like a great program. Some of them were family members, and some were just people that had been involved in the past. And it's not always the most fruitful to send a message through Facebook Messenger because a lot of people don't get it, but I did get quite a handful of people that responded, and that was the way that I found some peer-to-peer fundraisers. So I ended up between staff and couple of people that we knew that were younger and technologically savvy. And then through the Facebook research, I ended up getting about 10 peer-to-peer fundraisers. And as I mentioned, about 6 of them raised money. One of them was actually just really fantastic. And if you're familiar with the 401Gives peer-to-peer fundraising page, as Katie said, it really mirrors your nonprofit page. But the nice thing is you can add a personal story in there. This particular woman, her mother was a client of Insight, and they went on a lot of the trips and programs together. So she put a picture of her and her mother. So people knew it wasn't just like, blanket like sharing. She had put the story in, I'm raising money because this organization has helped my mother learn so many tools and tricks to help with their visual impairment. And it just, even after 401Gives, I remember she emailed me, she's like, my uncle from Puerto Rico is sending a check. And I was like, geez, that's fantastic. So yeah, just really the personal relationships and reaching out to those people. And so although we brought in about $1,000 more last year than the executive director did a really nice job of doing it. The first 4 years, we brought in about $1,000 more, but we did bring in quite a few more at 30 plus new donors. So that was really important. So
That's awesome. I
yeah,
think a new headline will be peer-to-peer fundraising brings international donors.
yes,
I love
we
Puerto
know we get
Rico.
a lot of international donors. Yeah.
I like two things that you said. One, you talked about the framework of donor acquisition in comparison to dollars. I think when we think about goals and the making of goals, it's
Mm.
important to shift from dollars to donors, because it's a way to make people feel good about their gifts no matter what it is. Last year
Mm,
with 401 Gives, we had over 6,000 new self-identified donors to organizations. And so focusing on that donor acquisition piece, I think allows for stewardship after the program is over.
yeah.
Um, you had also talked about kind of finding those peer-to-peer fundraisers on Facebook, and the
Mhm.
ways that people interact with social media. I think that's really important when we look at organizations that do social services and they have clients with protected stories, protected names. And so finding people that are just in the community and working with these organizations offhandedly because they love them,
Yeah.
is a way to avoid that like trauma for dollars exchange that we have to do a little bit when asking clients to work with us. We talked about that a little bit in the storytelling piece. And so to have that peer to peer fundraising framework, I think is really important for what we're talking about. Um, And so we're also, again, talking about capturing fundraiser stories. So motivating fundraisers to share their personal connection to your mission by asking these questions. So, what made you decide to get involved? What do you wish everyone knew about this organization? Why do you enjoy giving to our organization? What's your favorite program or service? And how do you feel after working at, volunteering at our organization? The way that you ask these questions, what questions you ask, and how their answers depend on your audience that you're asking. But again, if you're looking for those community members who are just engaged because they love your organization, these answers are going to be really enticing and they're going to look really good on your peer to peer profile. And so look for these people, ask them those questions, and get them engaged in your 401 Gives Day. We're also talking about stewarding your fundraisers. So, treating your fundraisers like your major donors, because they're really important for your giving day, but not only your giving day, but your rest of year, year over year. Acknowledge your fundraising for your organization as a higher level of participation. Recognize those who raise a lot for your cause. Invest in your long term relationship. Remember that this doesn't start and stop with 401 Gives, it's year long. And ensure your fundraisers have a great experience regardless of how much they raise. Again, we're talking about donors versus dollars, just the impact on the time and talent that they have in here. And so, Jen, how do you recommend maintaining peer-to-peer fundraiser engagement after 401 Gives ends? And this could even be more of like a donor engagement piece since that's what you do here now back at United Way.
Basically, you just hit upon everything. Thank, thank, thank. I mean, I personally a couple times called the largest peer-to-peer fundraiser, but I also did the same for all of them. I emailed to thank them. I called them all to thank them. And then just, keeping them on your radar throughout the year, making sure they're engaged. When they were the one in particular that raised a lot of money when she was there for a program, I'd make sure I came out and chatted with them and, just know that they're important. And the funny part was, especially as a lot of you can probably relate, she was more appreciative than me almost. She was like, "Oh no, I was so happy to do it for you. Insight has done so much for my mother and I'm so happy." It was just a love fest. So yeah, there's no secret sauce in this. It's just thanking and being appreciative.
Yeah.
That's really what it is.
It also builds over year, year over year. So the more that
Yeah.
you engage your peer-to-peer fundraisers for this cycle of 401 Gives, it'll be even better for next, next, and next. And if people see your peer-to-peer fundraisers kind of flourishing, that's maybe a wagon that they then want to jump on. And so the more effort you put up front, I think the more payoff you get on the back end.
Yeah.
When we're talking about engaging your peer-to-peer fundraisers, we can also look to Give for Good, which is our year-round giving platform through the same software as GiveGab. But that also has year-round peer-to-peer fundraiser functionality. And so if peer-to-peer fundraising is something that works well for you and your audience, because it may not work for everybody, or it may not work at the height that everybody seems to think it does. Um, then you can go over to Give for Good and make a profile and do year-round peer-to-peer fundraising. So having those asks all of the time. And so if you're interested in that, we can talk after this, anybody on the call. And I think most importantly is to make it fun. Peer-to-peer fundraising has the capability to be so much fun, and we see organizations having a lot of fun, especially when we look at our top peer-to-peer fundraisers like Foster Forward and Arise and Children's Friend. These places are having friendly competition. They're pairing it with events. They provide templated graphics, communications, and sample content for sharing on social media to their peer-to-peer fundraisers. And most importantly, ask yourself what experiences you would want to have as a fundraiser. What do you think you would need to be able to get this done? And also ask members of all audiences. So if you're having younger generations do peer-to-peer fundraising, ask them what they may want. If you're having older folks do peer-to-peer fundraising, like Jen was talking about, think about what aids and materials they may need upfront to get that work done. And so, Jen, what do you think are some common mistakes that organizations make with their peer-to-peer fundraising? Both what you saw in the beginning of 401 Gives, and then also was there any challenges that you had at Insight where you were like, oh,
I think you and I kind of to it at the beginning where you just, because there is an option in the dashboard where you can send out a mass email to peer-to-peer fundraisers. That might be one way to go if you had kind of talked to them ahead of time and then sent out a mass email saying, please be a peer-to-peer fundraiser, and then again, following up with them. But I think one of the biggest mistakes is people think, oh, all right, here's my donor list or my volunteer list. I'm just going to send it out and they're going to set it up and be fine. Um, that's probably a big mistake. And again, another one is to kind of educate your peer-to-peer donors that you can't just on April 1st, you can't just plop it up once on your Facebook or Instagram and let it be. You kind of have to roll it, that's not the right word, but roll it over every few hours and be like, hey, don't forget, XYZ organization has already raised $4,000. We really want to reach 7,500. Can you help and share on your social media? Um, One thing I see, some people might know our colleague Kyle Bennett, he does actually a Facebook fundraiser in the month of March because his whole birthday is the month of March. Um, and he does a fantastic job. He's actually raising money right now for his Masons group. And every time someone makes a gift, he will tag that person and thank them, and therefore it kind of generates more interest in like, oh, why is Kyle thanking this person? Oh, because he's got a fundraiser. So it just kind of keeps cycling along, and he doesn't just post it and then he'll repost it every few days, and he raises quite a bit of money. He's done it for United Way fundraising as well. And so that is really important to make sure that you educate people to continue to post. And again, Kyle does it over the month. For 401 Gives, it's 24 to 36 hours. So we're not completely annoying everybody.
no, that thanking piece is really important. We always talk about thanking donors, like House of Kodak during their 401 Gives campaign. Kind of towards the end, we'll start to put up these social graphics with the list of names of all the people that have
Mhm.
given. And I love to be on there, but I think we also need to think about that in terms of organization to peer-to-peer fundraisers. So highlighting them throughout the day. So both your peer-to-peer fundraisers can feel spotlighted, but also your community knows where to go to do additional donations and to get those personal stories. Um, and again, making it as fun as you can. I think that competition piece is really important. And then when we also talk about goal setting, that's where that competition piece can come into play a lot. And so you need to set up your fundraisers for success. So starting early, educating your fundraisers and understanding their capacity for this ask. That's when we talk about like not everybody, there's no one way to peer-to-peer fundraise and not everybody can do it at the same capacity. So if you know that one of your peer-to-peer fundraisers is going to make a handful of really intentional asks, then make sure you strategize around that. If you know your peer-to-peer fundraiser is going to do this kind of more general ask to a larger community, strategize that way, but know that capacities look different and peer-to-peer fundraising looks different across the board. Always be clear, be transparent with your goals, and set expectations for your fundraisers. Goal setting is so important. You need to make sure that you're setting realistic and attainable goals because also donors feel so good when they can get you to that goal. If you know that your peer to peer fundraiser has capacity to only raise $500, first of all, any money raised is good money. Secondly, if they can bring their peer donors up and get to that $500 goal, it is going to feel so good versus setting a goal of $2,000 and it's still being on that lower tick and not being attainable. We see a lot with organizations, they beat their goal once, they're always going to beat it again twice and maybe three times. Again, House Kodak does this where they encourage their donors to set like a new goal essentially for themselves because they've already broken their first one. So make sure that those goals are attainable and easy and fun for your audience. And again, make it easy. Provide the content that they need and take the time to check in. It's not a one and done like me and Jen are talking about. You should have check in sessions. Jen is doing a training in a few weeks with her peer to peer fundraisers. These are volunteers that are helping you set up a program and campaign, and you should be meeting with them to also make sure that they feel wanted and important and set up for success. And that's a time where they can voice any concerns or questions with you versus kind of just floating in this space of not really knowing what's going on.
I'll also add, Katie, that, oh, you're getting into the profile, but yeah, just making things easier for your volunteers, your peer-to-peer people. You, as someone that has access to the back end dashboard, can, if they send you, sometimes someone is not as well versed in setting these things up. If they can just email you a picture of themselves, maybe volunteering with you, and a couple sentences, you can change their peer-to-peer page. So it's really helpful for them.
Yeah.
And then they can just go about and on 401 Gives and share it. So
A peer-to-peer steward, or a peer-to-peer profile builder is also, I think, a really good volunteer opportunity for people who maybe don't have a large peer circle, or aren't comfortable with that ask, because not everybody is a fundraiser, not everybody's comfortable with that ask, and that's okay. And so if you know someone who is comfortable with like your run-of-the-mill kind of computer works, then they can be that person for you and still give that time and that talent. But maybe it's not them asking, but it's them supporting the asks. And so there's always ways to get volunteers engaged and more importantly, more off of your plate as you offload it onto volunteers, board members, stuff like that. And so really quickly, we're going to go through and do like a slight demo with some screenshots of how your peer-to-peer functions work. And then we're going to move into a Q&A. So you can feel free to start throwing your questions in the chat if you have any related to peer-to-peer fundraising or not. And then we'll go to those questions in just a little bit. So you want to navigate to your fundraisers tab on your 401 Gives dashboard, and please feel free to follow along on your computers if you have them up. And then you want to go to Add Fundraisers, and it'll open up this page. You can set a default story and goal for your peer-to-peer fundraisers, and then they can edit it on the back end. But if they open this invite with kind of being halfway set already, it's going to make them feel a little bit more intrigued to do it versus this blank canvas where they have to now start up themselves. And then you can make fundraising either invite only or open to any sign up. My advice, and Jen's may differ or she may agree, um, my advice would be do invite only on the first round. And kind of really target and start small in your peer-to-peer fundraising. And then as you get your footing, you can kind of leave it open to any sign up. Unless you know your audience and you feel that open sign up would be better. But I feel like really targeting a couple of people and really getting your footing when it comes to peer-to-peer fundraising would be a better start. Do you feel the same way, Jen, or would you have a different opinion?
yeah, I think so because I mean, in general, if you have someone that wants to do it anyways, they can go to your profile and click on that fundraise button. So
Yeah,
they have that option. But yeah, I think an invite only is definitely best way
yeah.
to start.
So once you're in that tab, if you're inviting a fundraiser, you select Add Fundraiser, which you can see at the top here. And then you can invite one or multiple fundraisers at once, and you'll need their first name, last name, and email address. And then you'll compose your message to your peer-to-peer fundraisers. It's a plain text kind of thing. It's a very simple email. You're not going to get too crazy with it, but it's a way to communicate with people kind of all at once. Um, So again, you can use the GiveGab system to send quick plain text emails to your peer-to-peer fundraisers at any time. It's not just during the invite, or you can download a CSV file to contact them separately, either in the place that you send newsletters or emails, or just through Outlook or whatever email sender you use. But it's a way to get a complete list in one shot. And then on your fundraiser dashboard, so this is what your peer-to-peer fundraisers will see. They have three options. They have a tell your story, make a donation, and share socially. They're all pretty self-explanatory, but your most important one is that tell your story button. And this is where the fundraiser can customize with their own photos, videos, story, goal, and more. Or like Jen was saying, if they can send you some things, you can put it on there for them, or if you have a volunteer to do that for you. Um, but as personal as this profile can get, the better, because again, they're looking into their peer circles and they're trying to get as personable as possible. And it'll just make that reach a little bit better because it's a little bit more personal. There's definitely a timeline for peer to peer recruitment and stewardship, and it certainly starts now. So You want to plan, review fundraising toolkits, brainstorm internally, set goals, set attainable, clear, transparent goals, and you want to prepare. So, invite and onboard your peer to peer fundraisers, communicate goals, and share resources. Early March is now. So, this is the time that you want to start doing that stuff. In about a week to 2 weeks, you want to coordinate. So, provide templated materials, host office hours for questions, host trainings like Jen is doing, and peer to peers should complete their profiles. There's a section of the website where you can see all peer-to-peer fundraisers before the giving day starts. And so if those profiles are up and ready to go as people are perusing, they kind of can see and keep a mental checklist in their brain of where they want to go after the giving day starts. You want to check in, send encouraging messages, and update peer to peers on progress. Make sure that they feel engaged the whole time so that when the giving day starts, they're ready to go. They know exactly what to expect. And also, they're excited to do it. The excitement will certainly come through when they're sharing their story and sharing those social media posts. And then follow up, like we were talking about, thank your peer to peer fundraisers, plan post event touch points, collect feedback, host debriefs. That stewardship extends after 401 gives. And so you want to make sure that you move through that as tightly as possible with them. We're just going to talk quickly about some resources and takeaways, and then we'll move into a Q&A. So resources for success. So there's tools to share with fundraisers. You want to tell them how to sign up, of course, and let them know where it's going to be coming from. If you're doing invite only, let them know that an email is coming. If you're doing open sign up, let them know where that link is. Really give people step by steps on how to get there. You want to share resources and support articles with them, communication guides and templates, and links to download graphics. Um, this is where you get to decide how much creative room they have. So you can either give them the room to create their own graphics, you can provide them graphics, you can give them communication guidelines, you can let them share out whatever they want, but make sure that you're being clear and transparent with your peer to peer fundraisers. There's some tools for nonprofits. So again, support articles and videos for engaging peer-to-peer fundraisers. Not only this, but GiveCab has some on their website. Again, graphics and downloads for your organization and the GiveGab customer success team. If you're having any troubles with peer-to-peer fundraising, you can of course reach out to myself and the team, or you can reach out to GiveGab customer success. I love them so much. I never say that a support team online is good, except for the GiveGab team. It's a group of people that we get every year, so they know the program, they know the participants, and they answer very quickly. And then just some key takeaways. So peer-to-peer fundraising can be the difference of an average of $10,000. Like we talked about in the beginning, organizations without peer-to-peer fundraisers bring in just above 3,000, and organizations with peer-to-peer fundraisers last year brought in almost $14,000. Fundraisers increase your organization's reach and visibility. Um, they're out there and they're writing for you guys. Like they want to be a part of this day and they want to be a part of your story. And the more that you prep them, the more that they can do that. Um, be strategic when selecting fundraisers. Provide your fundraisers with resources to make it fun and easy. Again, make it competitive. Let there be a prize, big thanks at the end. And start small this year and grow it into the future. If you are a nonprofit that's never done peer-to-peer fundraising, or you've had a leadership change, or you want to try peer-to-peer fundraising in a new way, start small and then grow it year after year after year. My one piece of advice for nonprofits that are engaging in 401 Gives for the first time or re-strategizing is don't try and do everything all at once. There are a lot of capabilities on 401 Gives, both in the way that you can strategize and its actual tools and capabilities. And if you try and do everything at once, you're going to stretch yourselves too thin. So if you want to focus on peer-to-peer fundraising this year, get a handful of people, really draw it out, really get them engaged, and see how that works out and how you can grow it year after year. And so we're going to move into a Q&A time, but while people are thinking or writing down their questions, Jen, what was different about running a peer-to-peer inside of a nonprofit? You talked about like that coach that never played. So was that game harder than you thought? Was it what we've been talking about? How was it?
Yeah, it was definitely different. I really had to think, for 4 years, I taught everything, how to do this in this scenario, in small nonprofit, medium nonprofit, large nonprofit. But I had to look culturally with insight, what data we had, what people we had, like I mentioned, using the Facebook, and that was what worked best for me. So you do have to take a little bit of time and think, okay, where can I get my best peer-to-peer fundraisers? So what might work for one nonprofit does not work for the other. So although
Yeah.
we train all the information, you definitely have to think, if you're a youth group or your group like Insight that has a lot of older clients, you have to work with your audience that you have. So,
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
one other thing, I'm actually on the board. We mentioned incentives and having fun. So a couple things here at United Way, we will do a staff incentive, and not everyone can do this, but we usually get a handful of staff that'll be peer-to-peer fundraisers, because obviously who knows the work the best. And what we usually do, I have to get it approved, but, what we usually do is have whoever gets the most donors will get an additional vacation day, so that's often a very,
Nice.
well sought after prize. Um, and the other thing that I'm on the board for a nonprofit called L's for Elders, although they've been doing their work for over 20 years, they just became a 501(c)(3). And so that's kind of like adopt a family, but it's for seniors that don't have family or someone to buy them a gift at the holidays. And so there's a lot of the senior communities, the assisted livings and the nursing homes that receive these gifts. And so they're actually pretty competitive. There's a whole, as you can imagine, in most different focus areas throughout the state, the senior community gets together and they're super friendly, but they're also super competitive. So I'm kind of giving them the tools to have some competition among the senior community. So it's just, to have fun and to let people know about the nonprofit that's out there and raise some money. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we would also miss an opportunity to talk about how important peer-to-peer fundraising is right now.
Mm,
With the current administration and attack on federal funding, we know that dollars are more important than ever.
mhm,
And there's a lot of people who feel like they don't know where to start in terms of helping nonprofits, in terms of fighting the good fight. And this is a way that they can do that. 401 Gives can serve a really big gap this year, and a lot of federal funding gaps that may come down the pipeline or already have. And so this is a way that you can talk to your donors in more of an emotional way and say this is change that they can make right away, and this is a way that they can help their favorite nonprofit. And so don't be afraid to have those conversations with your donors and your volunteers because they may be looking for a way to make change, but they just don't know where to start. Um, Peer-to-peer fundraising is just really important in 401 Gives, and it's a missed opportunity when nonprofits don't take it. This is also a really important kind of example as to why donor data is so important. If you're an organization that's not tracking your donor data, that's a mouthful. Start soon. If you're not sure where to start, you can always contact the Alliance and we can help you get set up with some resources. But the only way that you're able to really look at capacity is if you have that data capacity. And so start thinking and strategizing kind of in the next year how you can update your donor data to be able to better suit your cause and your ask. Um, I don't see any questions rolling in the chat, which is good because that means we just answered all of them. Um, and so I'm gonna give it kind of a 3-second awkward pause to make sure that there's no final questions, and then if not, we'll kind of close out. So if anybody has some last minute questions, feel free to throw a pause in the chat.
I just put my email in the chat in case anyone would like to reach out to me directly if they have any questions or just want to, kind of talk about something. Please feel
Yeah,
free to reach out to me.
absolutely. Also, in terms of collaboration, you can work with your other nonprofit peer partners. If you have nonprofits that you know work in the same communities and are doing the same kinds of work or run similar campaigns or have similar size capacity or donor capacity, you guys can work together to build your peer-to-peer fundraising campaigns. 401 Gives does not have to happen in a silo in your organization. Since you are a part of a larger network, that means that you can bounce ideas off of other people. And we've been trying to encourage this like collaborative nature more recently, and I think that now is also a time where that would really feel and serve a great purpose.
I agree, Katie. And just from my experience, you hear different things. You hear like 401 gives, oh, we just taking money from one pot to another. And I don't completely agree with that because we've experienced, Katie, that similar nonprofits are like, okay, we raised what we wanted to raise today. Now you should give money to this organization. And it just still gives me goosebumps when I think about that. And
Yeah.
there's just a lot of nonprofits that are like that, that know, that collaborate and share. So
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you everybody for coming this morning and spending your what's today? Monday morning, with us talking about peer-to-peer fundraising. I know that this question was in the chat, but this will be recorded and posted shortly within the next couple of days onto the website as well as the slides. So if any of your friends missed the training, they can come and watch it. Reach out to me, reach out to Jen, reach out to customer support at GiveGab, but get ready to peer-to-peer fundraise because it's important this year and it's gonna serve a gap. So as always, if you have any questions, let us know. But other than that, everybody have a great day.